ULM moves on from Terry Bowden. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. So we'll talk about Terry Bowden out at ULM. We'll preview the Troy and App State ball game, which we'll do all week, and some bowl projections, which actually have some home teams. Goodness gracious, that would be interesting. In the Sun Belt, even some people saying that two Sun Belt teams may play each other. Also, the good and the bad, right? So I was traveling last week or over the holiday weekend, and because I wasn't getting home until after 11 o'clock on Sunday night, we did the Sunday podcast, the Monday podcast, the Monday episode, early Sunday before noon. And then you kind of get caught up with what happens after that. And, well, Terry Bowden got let go at ULM. All right. 10-26, it's hard to justify him coming back. I freely admit that. So I can correlate it a little bit with what my school goes with, because I think my school being Syracuse, as it turns out, ULM is the toughest job in FBS, where I think Syracuse may be the toughest job in Power 5. So John Hartwell moving on from Terry Bowden. And again, they started out 2-0. First time since 18. They won the first two games of the season and then proceeded to lose every game after that. They were very competitive for a lot of the season, and maybe guys got tired, they got injured, quarterback issues, right? So they go 2-0, get blown out by A&M. Okay. And then they should have beaten App State. They had a goal line stand against them, and then App State kicks a 54-yard field goal to win it, 41-40. All right. Then they get blown out by South Alabama, and then they're up by 2 scores against Texas State in the fourth quarter and lose that. They very easily could have been 4-2. Could have easily been 4-2. Then kind of the bottom dropped out. They lose to Georgia Southern by 10. They lose Arkansas State by 10. Southern Miss makes the coaching change with the OC. They lose to them by 17. And then it got worse, got blown out by Troy. Ole Miss is on there, which they actually, played well for a half. And then got destroyed by the Cajuns. So, and the reason I compare this to Syracuse is because I didn't want Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen would probably come in there and do an okay job because he's a good coach, not a great recruiter. All right, doesn't like recruiting. Kind of gave up on the recruiting aspect of it for Florida. Had some good classes because it's tough not to get good classes when you're recruiting Florida, but that's not his thing. All right, so that would have been a hit and run. All right, Syracuse would have improved. Whether it's 1 or 2 years, he would have gotten a job after that. I don't care that the next guy, who I think is Fran Brown at Georgia, is going to do the same thing, except he's going to build it, and it's probably going to take a little bit more time, right? 3 or 4 years before it starts to pop, because you do need, even though you need the transfer portal, some guys are already out, and who you're going to get coming in, and you got to, if you get lucky enough to get a quarterback there for 2, God forbid, 3 seasons, you can build something there, and then you have the foundation, right? And so if Fran Brown takes the job and then he moves on, maybe one of his guys stays back and keeps the job. Whereas Dan Mullen comes in there, maybe it's, everybody jumps with him. Whereas that's what I think is going to happen at ULM. Terry Bowden wanted to be there, was not having success. I mean, there's guys that, strength coaches make more across the country than what Terry Bowden was making. All right. Just not very much money. And so when not only is the head coach not making money, so the assistant coaches aren't going to make money. They said, what was it at A&M? Was it I see. Was it Elko? Or yeah, I think Elko had, maybe it was Levy at Mississippi State, like $11 million for the coaching staff. $11 million. And that's who does all of the grunt work, right? That's who gets all of the recruits. They line up for the head coach to close. And when you don't have that, it's tough to do. And with Terry Bowden, you kind of had that. All right. He wasn't going anywhere. Didn't necessarily want to go anywhere. So now what do? Okay. Is it Sean Fox from Channel 4? Because I had some fun with him last night talking about this, because he said that he had some assistant coaches that are actually interested in the job, which would be great. I don't know if I necessarily believe him. Yes. Sean Fox from 97.7 Sports Talk up in North Louisiana. He mentioned that. And so we'll see. All right. Because I don't know if you can do hit and run with ULM. That's the thing. All right. That's going to be really tough to do a hit and run with ULM, because you have, you're going to have some turnover QB wise, but these teams are still pretty good, right? We'll see what Troy does now that Gunnar Watson is, I think, done with college. Carter Bradley is moving on from South Alabama. You do have some young guys. Gio Lopez got a little bit of experience filling in for Bradley earlier this year. He's got some potential. You do have Ethan Crawford from Southern Miss. He's got potential. And you got Zion Chris, if he doesn't get scooped up in NIL, with the Cajuns. So it is not going to be easy over the next couple of years to break through, and Jalen Rayner with Arkansas State. And TJ Finley may not be gone from Texas State. I think he's got 2 more years of eligibility. So it's going to be tough to do a hit and run with ULM. So can you build it? That's the thing. Are you going to find the guy that's going to come in here, get all the transfers in 1 year and go, and then you're sort of stuck in the same thing? Or do you have a guy who's going to be a little bit patient, build some NIL? You got to get some NIL money, however little it can be. You got to get some NIL money. And if you get the NIL money and you can keep the team together, relatively speaking, for a couple of years, maybe, and then just like when Fran Brown has a couple of good years for Syracuse, he moves on and leaves his assistant behind, a coordinator behind. Maybe that can happen with ULM. All right. You can go on. John Hartwell had a press conference. It's all over Twitter. You can find it. Apparently, some players were, crying, getting blown out by the Cajuns, and others were laughing, which he did not particularly like, and, gives the cliche saying everybody's got to be pulling on the rope at the same direction. And apparently he doesn't think that was the case at ULM. So they're starting all over again. Always happens at ULM. Wishing them the best. But we'll see what direction John Hartwell is going in. Says he's going to have a coach there in a week to 10 days. All right. We'll see what happens. The sooner the better, obviously. It's not only the signing day, but, the portal opens on Monday. So we'll see what happens with that. All right. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll preview a little bit of the Troy App State ball game and talk about the Sun Belt Championship. Now time to talk about FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Should be noted, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Obviously, you can do some others, and there are some college basketball teams that are not very good. This Syracuse LSU ball game should be interesting tonight. We'll see about South Alabama. They actually covered against Maryland. And then you have some pro teams like the Pistons are just bad. The Pelicans tend to cover, although I'm not sure what those lines were against Utah. Washington is very good, and Indiana is good for the over. So there's a lot of different ways you can go when you try FanDuel. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's talk about this Sunbelt Championship ball game. You got Troy and App State, and I'm getting hit up which I appreciate, in the comments section about how good, and I want to get this straight, how good the App State defense is. Let's see if we can find it here. App's defense gave up 20 points to Georgia Southern and 18 to JMU in regulation. They only gave up 27 to Drake May, led UNC in regulation as well. I think Wyoming had a total of 15 offensive points. Since the second half of the Southern Miss game, App's defense is giving up like 13 points per 60 minutes. That includes prolific offenses of Southern Miss. Wouldn't say the second half of the year, the last 3 ball games of the year. Georgia Southern, JMU, and always the potent GSU. Not so potent down the stretch. So I'd say App's defense has been as good as Troy's down the stretch. App also had a more difficult schedule overall. That was Eric said full. So App State's defense has played pretty well. They really have. I'm not quite sure as well as Troy's, okay? And Troy slipped up towards the end of the season. All right, last 2 ball games, they gave up 41 points. Last 2 ball games against the Cajuns, which was the most they've given up in the Sun Belt, 24, and 17 against Southern Miss. So they gave up 41 points in the last 2 ball games. Let's see if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think they gave up 41 points in the previous 6. Let's see if we count that right. 10, and then 13 is 23, 33. I'm sorry, 47. So in the last 2 ball games, Troy gave up 41. In the previous 6, they gave up 47. So as good as App's defense is playing, okay, and some, I'm not so sure how questionable, right? I mean, South Alabama, as up and down as they've been, had a couple of, 50-point outings. So they have an offense. Troy held Texas State to 13 points. They have an offense. Arkansas State, with the help of the defensive special teams, put up 77 points. They scored 3. So I'm not so sure about Southern Miss's potent offense, although it did improve the last couple of weeks. All right. So, again, I don't want to take anything away from App because I think their defense did improve. App does not have more than a 1-score loss all season. I think that's awesome, right? And, part of the issue we thought with Troy, because they did give up a lot of points to begin the season and really settled in about a month in. But, again, so some of these numbers may be a little bit different. They came off a couple of tough losses. One to Coastal Carolina that they should have won. Not could have won, should have won. All right, there is a difference. So they should have beaten Coastal Carolina, and I think the defense, after starting slow in that ball game, actually, allowed App to come back and get back in the game. And they were down 17-3. If you're down 17-3, you have the ball and it's tied, and you make a play, and you're setting yourself up for the game-winning field goal before the fumble. The defense absolutely has improved. All right. Then they gave up 28 to Old Dominion, which is just a tough team to defend. It really is. Double stacked wide receivers, way spread out. Really tough to defend. And again, the defense didn't play all that well for 3 quarters, but did play well for 1 in the 4th. You're down 10, you win by 10. That's pretty good. You put up 20 points in the 4th quarter against Southern Miss. Marshall was kind of a mess offensively this year. Georgia State, I mean, you're talking about Georgia, the potent Georgia State deal. I mean, they struggled down the stretch, right? Since beating the Cajuns, scoring all of 20 points. He scored 27 against Georgia Southern, 14 against JMU, 14 against App State. They did score 14 against LSU, but we know LSU's defense is awful, and that was on like maybe the first 2 or 2 of 3 possessions, and then nothing after that. And they scored 24 points against ODU. So I'm not exactly sure that App State had a tougher schedule per se. Now, the defense, I think, improved. All right. And again, I think that they suffered some really tough losses when, you're losing to Carolina, in double overtime. You lose to Wyoming on a last-second field goal. You lose to Coastal, as we mentioned, on a field goal, which you should have been kicking. All right. That's not on the coach. Coach doesn't fumble the ball. Tough loss is Old Dominion, but we find out that's not nearly as tough a loss as we thought it was back in the middle of the season. And now they have reeled off 5 straight. Troy, I mean, they really should be. Is there another team in the country that has won? Have they won 10 straight ball games? No, I guess they've won 9 straight ball games. Anybody else in the country won 9 straight ball games and not get ranked? Is Liberty ranked? Liberty, the only problem with Liberty Bidby, I can't even do the joke right. Liberty's 20th and 22nd. They have like the worst schedule in America. Troy does not have that. So it should be a great ball game. I could give you my, let's do that. I'm going to give you my prediction now, and we'll see if I change my mind. I have no problem talking out both sides of my mouth. On Tuesday, it is a 6.5 point spread, which, by the way, I nailed. I said 7. Outstanding. Troy is favored at home by 6.5. I would take App to cover that, especially if I can get 7. You give me App and 7, I'll take that. I'll also take the under. The under is 52.5. This ball game, I mean, I'll be shocked if they score more than 6 touchdowns in this game. 3 each, 27-21. 24-17, 2017. I'll be shocked if they score 50 in this game. All right. So you do have a couple of good quarterbacks, and we'll talk about that later on in the week. It'll be a great matchup between Aguilar and Watson. And then the offensive lines as well. So that'll be a big part of it. All right, let's take a timeout. See if we can do some bold projections. I mean, you got 12 of these things. And are they really going to put teams at home? Put teams basically at home? Although I'd have to find out the Frisco thing. We'll see. All right. That does seem, it's close by, but is it any closer than the Cajuns going down to New Orleans? No, maybe not. All right, let's take a timeout. Let's tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, PrizePicks as well. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in America. We're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings rolling. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season, and now I can play during basketball season too. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You can even do it combining the sports and players. All right. Steph Curry for more than 29 points and Nikola Jokic for more than 10 rebounds, such as that. All right. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's LockedOnCollege. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day. 12 Sunbelt teams going bowling. We're going to hear about that a lot. Problem is, I think it's all going to be, well, it's compacted in like 2 weeks, right? Something along those lines. See if anything happens late. The Mobile Bowl used to be late, but I don't think that is the case anymore. Let's check out what Brett McMurphy has from Action Network. This is from a couple of days ago, and see if it's changed at all. Because, I mean, you have South Alabama taking on Eastern Michigan in the 68 Ventures Bowl. They should get a good crowd because that's formerly the Lending Tree Bowl, which is at Hancock Whitney Stadium. And can we change the nickname from the Wit to the Bank, please? Can we do that? Or the Vault or something a little bit more, catchy than the Wit. Anyways, that's one. And then I thought I saw a Texas State hosting one in Frisco. Well, that's going to be a home game, right? Basically a home game. So we'll see. I also saw, as my worlds collide, someone's got out there Syracuse and South Alabama. Go Orange Jaguars. Can you do that? All right, so let's see what else McMurphy has here. I'm not sure if these have changed. Arkansas State and Jacksonville State in the New Orleans Bowl. I'm not sure how well that would do. Could be a really good ball game. He's got Jacksonville State only favored by 1.5. All right, then you do have Texas State hosting New Mexico State. New Mexico State beating Auburn a couple of weeks ago. Texas State, a 1-point favorite, although in the New Mexico Bowl. So it's not Texas State hosting. It's New Mexico State basically hosting. All right. App State and Toledo in the Cure Bowl in Orlando. App State, a 2.5-point favorite. You do have ODU in the Frisco Bowl. That's against WKU. Although I've seen Western Kentucky also going back to the New Orleans Bowl. So WKU would be a 2-point favorite against ODU. Marshall taking on Boise State. Boise State, a 10.5-point favorite. That would be in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. So Marshall would play in, familiar territory. That's where Coastal Carolina plays. Speaking of Coastal Carolina, they'll get South Florida. That's in Boca Raton. JMU, remember, they got to wait for all these things to come out. Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa, they get UCF. That's basically a home game for UCF. I think that's what's going to happen. The Birmingham Bowl may be the best one. You get a whale of a ball game and basically a home game for Troy. Troy -3 against Liberty. That would be a heck of a ball game. That's going to be one heck of a ball game. Both teams will have chips on their shoulders, right? Liberty is undefeated and they're ranked. Troy is 10-2 and they're not ranked. Pretty good. Plus, you get the whole Conference USA, Jamie Chadwell, Sunbelt thing going on. Georgia State, although struggling, they'll play the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery, taking on Wyoming. Wyoming, a 7-point favorite. And then, as I mentioned, South Alabama taking on Eastern Michigan in the the 68 Ventures Bowl. You do have the Cajuns taking on Air Force in Dallas in the First Responder Bowl. And that may be about it. So, obviously, there's a lot. There is a possibility that some teams may play each other. Some Sunbelt teams may play each other. Hopefully, they haven't played before. Is the thing, right? So, I mean, if you're a bowl team, wouldn't you put Troy against JMU? Isn't that what you would do? If you're a bowl team, let's put JMU against Troy. Isn't that what you want to do? That's what I would do. All right. I did miss, speaking of, where did, I said Georgia State. Did I miss Georgia Southern? I thought I missed Georgia Southern in here. Let's see. Oh, Georgia Southern right next to Arkansas State. Georgia Southern taking on NIU, Northern Illinois, famous Toastery Bowl in Charlotte. All right, so I did miss them. I apologize. So But boy, if you're a bowl game, and maybe that's a podcast whole to itself. If Troy wins a championship, can a bowl team go get JMU to play Troy? How great would that be? Oh, JMU wouldn't like it if it was in Birmingham or Montgomery, but boy, that'd be a lot of fun. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. All of a sudden, we got a few more subscriptions. Really appreciate that. We'll start getting into basketball as well. Cajuns with a relatively easy win, had a good first half, and was able to play a lot of reserves. At least that's what we saw from Monday's ball game, in an easy win over Loyola. They're going to play Samford in Birmingham later this week. All right, let's take we'll be back again tomorrow. Sorry, I was going to take a time out, but we're done. So again, thanks very much for tuning in. Again, you can get your Locked On Sunbelt podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Again, Apple and Spotify are the two most prevalent ones. But anywhere you search, you should be able to find Locked On Sunbelt. And please like and subscribe on YouTube. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been listening and watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.